This video covers exporting 3D data out to a 3D program from ArcScene in the ArcGIS suite. And in this video I'm going to cover simply utilizing ArcScene, and I'm just going to use SketchUp as the 3D modeling program to export to. I'll show when I'm doing the exports, different file types or different file extensions that can be utilized for other 3D programs. So we're going to do 5 steps essentially. We're going to explore the data, then we're going to simply show some extrusions within ArcScene. We're going to transfer the data to a 3D format. In this case, we're going to use the multipatch extension options with ArcScene. We're going to export it out to SketchUp, and then we're going to explore it real quickly in SketchUp just so we can see our 3D features. This is a good workaround for simply exporting out a scene from ArcScene to a 3D program. So if I were to have a scene loaded up in my ArcScene right now, if I go to File and say Export Scene and do Export 3D, you may not have success exporting out to a VRML for various reasons. At the new school, we seem to have a bug on the machines. It's acknowledged by Esri that bug exists. So oftentimes when you're trying to just export a scene, you're just going to get a file. It's either going to stall, hang up on you, or it's just going to give you 0 KB as an export. So we're going to add some functionality to this problem that's ongoing with ArcScene exports. So what we want to do here is the first thing, we need to have some data. So I'm just going to use Manhattan buildings, and the first thing I need to do is obviously connect to the data. So I'm within ArcScene right now. I have this folder called ManBuild. And within this folder, I have a feature class, or a shapefile in this case, that is all buildings within a mile of the centroid of Manhattan. Okay, so if I look on the attribute tables of my buildings and open the attribute table, I can see that I actually have a height for roofs here. So let's just do a sort descending and see our highs and our lows. So we have some buildings that are in the 700s and 600s, and then we also have some that are these 0 parcels down on the bottom. So we need to just always preview our heights to make sure that we have something that's making sense. And for the most part, it looks like we do. We have some very tall buildings here. Another thing that we have in this attribute table is a ground elevation. So we need to always be aware of what surface we want to extrude from. For this video, I'm not going to get into that issue, but you certainly need to, if you're doing an extrusion from some type of surface, you need to calculate that into your file formation and exports. So the first thing I'm going to do is I just want to be working within ArcScene, and I just want to extrude these buildings so I can see them in 3D. So to do that, I would simply do Properties, and I have 2 options here. I can have a base height. Okay, so this is where I might use that base elevation. For this video, I'm not going to get into the base height. I'm just going to extrude these features. So I need to click on that I want to extrude them, and then I need to add to each building what they're going to be extruded to. So here I'm just going to say, using the above, which I'll figure in just a second, how I want to extrude these out. So I'm just going to extrude these to a certain height, and that's going to be the building height. So I go into the expression builder, and I just simply want the roof height in this case. I'm going to say OK. So doing this is just going to assume that I have a flat surface, that there is no ground elevation, and I'm just going to the height of the roofs. So that's fine for the demonstration purposes. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this, and then as I apply it, I get something that looks like Manhattan, and great. So that's wonderful. That looks great. So we need to you need to be in control of how, within ArcScene, how you're actually developing your heights. And that's kind of a separate issue from what we have going forward here, which is how do we export out a 3D feature to something that's going to be useful in a 3D program outside of ArcMap or ArcScene. Okay, so to do the next process, we need to have a few things available to us. And if we go to Customize under Extensions, we need to have two extensions available. We need to have Data Inoperability, and we need to have 3D Analyst, and these need to be clicked on. So again, Customize, and then we go to Extensions. Once those two are on, the first step here is we need to get this particular file, which is in a shapefile or feature class format, into something that actually sees it as being a 3D file. In this case, we want to use the multipatch file extension, or file type, I should say. So to do that, what we need to do is go to 3D Analyst Tools, and under 3D Features right at the top, if we open up that toolbox, we can see we have some things that we can do. We can feature to 3D using Attribute. But we usually, what we really want to do here is we want to do a conversion. So if we click on Conversion, under Conversion Toolboxes, we have a Layer to 3D, or Layer 3D to Feature Class. This is really what we want to do. We want to embed the 3D components into a multi-patch formula. So we're going to click on this tool. We're going to simply input our man building, and then I would output it. One problem before I do this is that I have a lot of buildings in my scene currently, and if I do this, it's going to take quite a long time. So it would do this if I wanted to have this many buildings, but for our demonstration purposes, let's just go ahead and make a sub-selection here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause the video, make a selection, and then I'm going to export that selection as a shapefile, and I'll be back in just a second. Okay, I made a sub-selection and exported it out to a shapefile in a folder, so here it is. So this will just speed the process up a little bit. So I'm going to go to Layer 3D to Feature Class, and my input layer, instead of being Man Build, is going to be what I'm calling Man Select now. So I click on Man Select. I'm just going to send it to the default geodatabase, and I'm going to name it something a little simpler here. I'm going to call it Man Select. I'll just call it Export, and I'm not going to use grouping field, and I'll just say OK. It'll take a second for this to process, and then as it processes, we're going to get back a feature that kind of loses any of the attributes in symbology that I had before. So it's just going to make it kind of this grayscale feature now. So I could go ahead and go in and do what I wanted to do here, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to leave it as it is because we don't really, this is an intermediate step. We don't really care about this particular feature right now, besides getting it out of ArcScene into something else. So at this point, I've done what I've needed to do in terms of a conversion into a file format that's now called multipatch. So if I go to the attribute table, click on the attribute table, now I can see that I have my shapefile type as a multipatch. So let's go back to Man Select and look at that. Before it was a polygon, so now it's a multipatch, which is now something that's going to be easier for ArcScene to export out. So we need to get rid of 3D Analyst tools. We're going to skip out of that now, and what we're going to do now, as long as we have the extension for Data Inoperability installed, we should be able to use these tools. So I'll click on this box, and here I'm going to do a quick export, which is kind of funny because it's not necessarily particularly quick. It's powerful, but I wouldn't say it's quick. So what we're going to do here is we're going to input our Man Select export, which is the multipatch feature. And then the output data set, we need to point it somewhere. So before I do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an export folder on my desktop real quickly. I'm just going to call this, I'll I'll just call it export. So I need to be able to send it somewhere that I can see, on a drive or on the desktop, wherever it's going to be. So here I'm going to quick export again, and the input layer in this case is going to be man select export. I'm going to output it now, so I got to click on this little box over to the right hand side, and I'm going to specify both the format and the data set where it's going. So the first thing I need to do is click on, once again, the right hand, browse the gallery. So this is what's called the FME Writer Gallery, and this is what I think will be the most interesting to architecture students trying to get data outside of GIS. So here we have the formats that you're probably pretty used to seeing. So we have an Autodesk 3ds option. Of course, we have the AutoCAD options that can be utilized in ArcGIS and other places. We have the Collada format. Let's see, where is it? Oh, here it is. The .dae extension. As we go down, we can see that we have a lot of other file formats, which is great. So it gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of importing and exporting out of ArcGIS, whereas without the extension, we have limited functionality in terms of ins and outs. So here we have the Trimble SketchUp. I'm just going to use this because it's simple and easy to show a 3D element out to a 3D program. So I click on Trimble SketchUp, and I'm going to say OK. And so it sees the format now as this, and then I go to the data set, click on that little gallery button again, and I'm going to point it to wherever I want it to go now. So in this case, I'm going to go to my desktop, and I want to be sending it out to my export folder. I'm just going to click on this once so that it reads it as being a destination. Say select folder. It's going to send it out to that location. Now the coordinate system, I'm going to keep it the same as the source. So it's really important to remember when we're dealing with ArcGIS, we usually are dealing with, especially with city-based data, with some type of coordinate system. In this case, it's New York State plane and it's in feet. So I just need to be aware that whatever coordinate system I'm going to in a 3D program it's probably best to have the same units. So in this case, it's feet. I really should specify in my 3D program that I'm working in feet. So we want to have sort of an apples to apples when we're dealing with units, and also being aware of what the coordinate system is as you're exporting out. So I'll go ahead and say OK. And we can see that now I have an output data set called export, and I'm just going to go ahead and say OK, click that. It'll take a moment for it to develop the export file, and it's really important to remember as the file gets larger. So if I wanted to try to do this with my 1 mile radius proximity off the centroid for all buildings within 1 mile of that centroid, it would take quite a while. So I wrote 371 features, and that took less than 30 seconds. So it actually took 13 seconds. So just keep in mind, if you're having export issues, it may be the actual just simple size of the features that you're trying to export out. Okay, so we're essentially done now in ArcScene. So I'm just going to go ahead and collapse this, and I'm going to go into SketchUp. I have that open, and I'm just going to say File, Open, and I'm going to point it to my export folder now, and I should see my file, and importantly, it has a file size to it, so it looks like it processed, and I go ahead and say Open, say no, and that's okay. And as it drops in here, we should be able to see it in 3D format in just a moment. So I'm going to zoom to layer and get this all set up. Okay, so what I did is I zoomed to extent to see the features, and then what I did is I put on a style so we could see the buildings. So here, if I take a look at my export, what's important is if we do a selection on one of these buildings here, let's take a look at the format that it's sent it out to, or how it's treated the surfaces. So here before, in ArcGIS, before extruding and before transferring into a multipatch feature, we would have just had one polygon. So here we have a much more sophisticated element that you can now treat in a 3D program the way that you would like to, and go ahead and work in a 3D format with a little bit more precision and variability than you would potentially in ArcMap. So hopefully this is helpful to getting potential 3D data, not only buildings but surfaces, tins, rosters, out of ArcScene or ArcGIS into a 3D environment that as an architect specifically you would want to utilize. So good luck with this.